I thought rather than try to talk aeroplanes, I knew Paul was going to talk quite a lot about about his past. I'd switch to a different topic. So I thought I'd talk something a little bit booky. And this is one. I've posed a question where there is no answer to it because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So really, what I'm hoping for is we get a little bit of interaction and some feedback and a bit of discussion as well. But I thought I'd throw out a few points about what is a good aviation cover, because it's dear to most people's hearts, particularly to me as an author. And a few principles. You know, what should a book cover do? Well, it's got to immediately tell you what the book is all about, the genre. You know, it's about an aeroplane. Great. Sets the audience. You know, I mean, people will form an initial impression about what they see. You know, sight's the most powerful sense, isn't it? Sets the tone. Is it professional? You know, if you get a bad cover, it probably doesn't stop some books selling, but it sure as hell puts some people off. So, you know, it will, if you have an unprofessional cover, it will definitely affect what you're going to do with the book. And it should tell you what the book is all about. Pretty obvious, really, those points I would have said. But, and that's probably the most important point, and it comes as a bit of a shock to a new author, that the book cover is a commercial decision. It's actually nothing to do with you as an author. It's for them to sell a book to the British public, or to an international market for that matter. So quite often, you know, we all get miffed. Well, I don't like that, I don't like this. But actually, it's for them to decide on commercial grounds. It's going to generate sales. It also, it's that first impression that somebody gets when they look at it and they pick something up. So quite important. And it should be unique. Yeah, right. Yeah, if we could all produce the unique book cover, we'd be home and dry. I mean, I think that's probably, although it says it's one of the principles, that's probably a lost cause for starters. Okay, what's your market? That's one of my novels, but it's important to start. Are you into hardback or paperback? Because if you are, then you're looking at something on a, you know, on a shelf. It's got to be big, it's got to be bold, it's got to catch attention. So hardback or paperback, but increasingly, it might be the ebook, and that might be all that somebody will see of your book, you know, some tiny little thing. So it's got to be immediately recognizable for, you know, the subject that you're going to try and get across. We've all seen the little icons on Amazon. That's probably what somebody might buy your book for. So you've got to decide what your market is going to be. How do we decide then? There might have been a little bit of sort of adjustment here. That was actually foils and Charing Cross, and I did get in there and doctor it, but don't tell anybody. But how do we actually choose? Well, first of all, we're looking at this. We're looking at a book on a shelf, the spine. More of that in a second. Then we take a look at the cover. You know, the spine should have dragged you in. The cover should be the thing that makes you start. Then we look at the blurb. We start reading it. Are we interested in the author? Are we interested in the book? Okay. I just nicked this off somebody. Somebody posted this on the book site the other day, and yeah. Now, first look at the spine. Which book on there draws the eye? Well, these are fantastic books. The Osprey series, you know, we all know and love them. But if it's amongst all those, which one would stand out? And if yours is this one, then you're in trouble. But, you know, look at the one up here, you know, the instant impact. But quite a lot of us, we'd love to think that our book is going to be nicely face on the bookshelf, in the cover or in the library or whatever, but generally speaking, that's where you're going to sit, next to all the others, so you need to stand out a little bit. So there you go, another one I nicked from the book site as well. Which one stands out there? Is it one of yours? It was one of yours, Joe, I think, wasn't it?
My box was at far.
It probably is, yeah. But when you look at that, there's a couple of points that come out. First of all, are you now talking about the author being more important than the book? Somebody might buy it because it's a McNab. Or are you talking about a title you recognise? Well, that one's pretty well, it stands out. It's black on white, you can see it, it's going to stand out from the shelf. Or maybe another one that might drag you in, you know, something that picks you up. But how often do we think about what's going to go on the spine? And indeed, you might not have a big enough spine to get anything on. You know, a little novella might be so slim, like the Osprey books, that you're not going to be able to make that impact. But it does show that there are different ways of doing it. So, you know, a point we all have to think about when we're at that stage. A good cover, right, no question. What is that? It's Biggles. First World War. slightly sort of sepia, although there's a bit of colour in there as well. But there's no question about that being a book about World War I flying, and that's got what you're probably going to go, and you're probably going to go onto the back and find out now. Am I going to buy it? No question about that. Right, I'm going to choose a bad cover. Oh no, I'm not. Yeah. I forgot about that one. I threw that one. I threw that one in at the last minute. You know, as sex sells, sadly, and you can go to all the best will in the world, but if your competitor comes up with a better idea than you do, then they might beat you to it. But yeah, so I bet you all missed my 2 up the top there, didn't you? Yeah. That was what I was going to say. Right. I chose one of my own. I didn't like to do anybody else's book cover down, so I thought I'd pick that one. Tornado F3 in focus. Now, it's not. This is the one that we all see on the table there. So it's not a bad cover. It's there, and the cover designer has decided it's a dramatic image, and there's lots of flames and lots of things. But me, looking at that when I first saw it, I thought, that doesn't give me the tone that I'm after as the author. I thought that would be great on the front of a novel, but as a serious work about the tornado, it seemed a little overly dramatic to me. This was one of the other ones that, that came up, the one on the bottom right there. That was one of the other options. Same sort of theme, if you see, but using the aeroplanes in a different way. But the blue seemed to fit better for me with what the tone of the book was supposed to say. But again, the cover designer went for the little dramatic touches and flares everywhere and what have you, which kind of, me as an operator, it grated a little bit. So I'm not saying it's a bad cover, it's not, because a lot of people have said to me, oh, I love the cover. But having said that, me as an author, I didn't like it as much as he as a commercial person wanting to get onto the market. So just a thought, you know, what does it say about the book? And the bizarre. Now, I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but that doesn't tell me a whole bunch. This lady presented at the London Book Fair last year, and she was talking about her book cover, and she was absolutely thrilled with it. But to me, that doesn't do much for me at all. I struggle reading it. It doesn't tell me what the book's about. But this apparently won accolades. It won awards and what have you. But you know, it's horses for courses, I guess. But yeah, beats me. So the title, the next bit. So the title, go with your gut. Well, that's not going to work. That's probably the last thing that you should ever do. The superficial, browse bookstores for ideas. Well, I think if you've got to the end of the painful process of writing a book, and you're now starting to browse around bookshops to try and decide what you're going to call it, you've probably got your priorities a little bit back to front. So that's probably not a great plan at that stage. And equally, don't spend too much time on it. The title is quite important. It's got to say what you're going to get across in the book, and it's got to hook people in. There you go. A few things about it. Not embarrassing or problematic for somebody to say aloud to their friends. there's a challenge, isn't there? Yeah. That's probably why I've gone for single word title or single word titles for my novels. Keeps you off the hook. And then the blurb. This is the final bit. This is the little description that we all look at when we decide if we're going to buy a book. And there are loads of things about what it should do. Give you a hint of the plot. Yep. Use words to evoke images. Yep. They always say bring in your main characters. You know, drag the reader in. Now that's somewhere where I differ, because in my case, quite often the main character can be the aeroplane rather than the people in there. So, you know, characters can be inanimate as well. Setting, a hint of mystery to be answered. You've got to leave that hanging question, haven't you, when you write the blurb. And yeah, the epic novelist from downtown Lincolnshire has just produced his latest blockbuster epic, something like that. Otherwise, credibility is out the window. It might be out the window anyway if you try that. So just a few thoughts. So, the next one. That's my next novel. Hopefully it's about Soviet task force coming around the west of Scotland. It's about phantoms. It's about QRA. So the first thing you've got to get on is the image of who's involved. And clearly there's a bear involved. Clearly there's a phantom involved. So I hope it gets across that side of it. And the hint of RAF. It's about RAF fighter crews. You would be surprised how many people have written reviews on the novels and said, if you want to read this, don't read this, it's about the Phantom, but not as you know it, my American friends. You know, well, the hint is in the title, it's about an RAF Phantom crew, but you'd be surprised. Amazing. And I don't expect you to read that, but the blurb goes on the back, and the aim of that is just to try and get a little bit of a feel for, you know, what the book's about. So I just thought I'd throw a few questions out there, and it'd be great if people open it up for thoughts and you know, what do you do when you buy a book? You know, what do you think? Are you influenced by certain things? So fire it out to the floor.
The wing, sorry, on your on the top row there. I'll be honest, I've never read your book. That's how I will. The wings, are they your set of wings?
They're stylised. They're you get into the commercial issues. So yeah, it's the aim was to give that sort of feeling of, you know, it is about an RAF crew, but you can't use the full logos, otherwise you're into copyright issues and whatever. So it's a stylised version.
So RAF is okay, Royal Air Force is not. Is that
no, but if you use the actual wings with all the King's Crown and all the detail, you might struggle a bit. They seem to be happy with that. Yeah. But obviously these are the fictional ones, and I try to follow a theme. You know, you choose the aeroplane, you choose the setting. So for example, this one was with a little Pembroke. This was down south in the Falklands, an A4. The one Deception is over set in the Middle East, so Buccaneers into Lebanon, you remember the Pulsator in 82 type thing. So try and pick out a theme that follows through, and then the general thing is to try and run a theme, you know, call it the corporate brand, call it what you like, but to try and run a theme through all the novels as they run. These are the commercially produced ones, and you can see there's been a change in style over the years with Fonthill starting out, and then you can see the image of different graphics designers, and the Tornado in Pictures one literally was just, it was a picture book, it was one particular photographer. I had very little input to that one, although it's got my name on it, but it was mainly his pictures. But you can see the way he's developed over 4 or 5 years.
Is your fiction published by the same publisher as your non-fiction?
No, that's by DG Media, in other words, me. So I self-published the fiction. But I started off with the factual books, with the traditional route. But there are lots of reasons why it's nice to be able to branch out and go your own way. The reality, though, is that trying to find somebody that's interested in aviation fiction in the modern market is almost impossible. People are not interested. Whereas, you know, in the old days.
I've just come out of publishing after a 30-year career, so it's rather like sitting in a work meeting when you opened up your presentation.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but yeah, fiction is very, very challenging to publish.
And I think it's a perception of, I chatted to an agent last year at the book fair, and he basically said I wouldn't know what to do with it. You know, which is quite sad when you look at the number of people that go to air shows, the number of people that, you know, are interested in Top Gun, the movie, and what have you. But that is the reality, that, you know, it's hard to attract interest. So.
Do you ever write with a screenplay in mind?
No. It's, I mean, obviously the factual books are kind of autobiographical. You know, focus on the aeroplane, focus on what the aeroplane did. Or Falklands, focus on the environment, you know, as in the Falkland Islands. Whereas the novels you can run riot, but I do try to base it in reality. So the places are real, the descriptions are real, the stuff in the cockpit is real. It's just the actual plot of what the people do that you then end up. And I try to ground it in, could it have happened? You know, I'm not into the nuclear holocaust or anything like that. You know, there might be a little twist at the end, but the basics of it need to be factual, need to be possible. So, but that is, it's more fun being able to do that, because you can, you know, the factual has to be right, you know, because people will pick you up otherwise. Yeah. Whereas the novels, you can. I did have one funny conversation with a guy who picked me up on something I'd put in one of the novels and said, "Well, that's not right. They don't do that." And they said, "Well, it's a novel. It's supposed to be." But I obviously got the message across, though, because he was talking as if it was a real book. But,
does the fiction come out of the factual as you're writing the factual? Do you see a story building?
Yeah, you may see a theme, because that was the first one, and then Defector was set in Germany, and then that was the second one, and You know, so it kind of, you know, you get that spark and then move on. And but as I say, you know, try to think about what might have happened on the ground. And yeah.
Getting back to your colours, for me, Phantom and Focus was your first book that I bought for myself. That colour just conjures up to me what it was all about.
Yeah.
The Cold War, battle flight.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I went to bought your Tornado F3, I don't know if you thought of this, but I remember you mentioned that colour, you weren't really struck with it.
Mm.
But someone just struck me there looking at it now. I've got that one. And I wasn't really, I thought after the first colour, that was more traditional style, and then that was the Tornado F3. I thought GR1 with the explosions and all that.
Yeah.
But
that's what I thought.
The turn of this one, it was 56 squadron that you flew with, so there's the fire bit inside, isn't it?
You can get into sort of commercial issues there with the Air Force.
Right.
If you put, you know, overt badges or squadron markings or whatever. But they didn't seem to get too worried about this, maybe because the aeroplane was going out of service. But yeah, it's I felt the same way. You know, when I first saw it, I thought, it's too dramatic. It's you know, it's too in your face. It's not. It doesn't tell me what I think. No. Yeah. That's you're pretty much mirroring what I thought at the time. Whereas other people have come up to me and said, "Oh, it's brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Love the bangs." And yeah, so as I said right at the beginning, there's no answer. It's you know, beauty in the eye of the beholder and all that.
Do you retain the power of veto over your colours?
No.
Could you
No,
it's down to the publisher?
It's down to the publisher. It's their call. You know, you can make suggestions, but it's their call. Yeah. Which comes as a bit of a surprise to a brand new author. Yeah. That you think you've got ultimate power over it, but actually, it is a commercial thing. And probably rightly so. I mean, they're putting up the money. They're you know, they're putting all the effort in to turn it into a book that's going to go to market. So they're generally better at it than I am. So yeah, but yeah, publishing is a big surprise to outsiders. It's an unusual industry, a lot different to the Air Force, that's for sure. Any more? I'm happy to sort of digress and go on to, you know, Phantoms or anything else that we haven't talked about. But I just thought I'd steady, Stuart. Okay, cool.